Welcome back to another episode of the Racing Life Podcast. I'm Casey Campbell. Thanks for joining us. Joining us today is Ryan Truex, the driver of the number 40 Marquis Spas Chevrolet for Nice Motorsports in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. Hey, Ryan, how's it going, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So where did this racing thing kind of start?
That's a good question. I grew up in a racing family.
Yeah.
So, I've been around it my whole life, and I actually got started later than most. I didn't start racing till I was 14. So compared to those guys around me, I had about a 10-year disadvantage. Most guys start, when they're 5 or 6, feels like. So I was around it my whole life, grew up around it. And, once Martin kind of got to the Xfinity Series, it's when I started to really get more interested in it, and more, I really just wanted to try it, see if I was any good at it. And, the rest is kind of history.
Yeah. So it's like, when you were 14, what'd you kind of start off in? Like, where did you start?
So I started in a Bandolero up in New Jersey at Wall Stadium. So I think I only raced it 4 times that year. Not many. And after that next year, I moved up to Legends Cars and started racing more often, started traveling, came down to North Carolina and did some racing. And that's when it really started to snowball.
Yeah. So really, how long did you race Bandoleros for?
Just that 1 year. Like I said, I only raced it, I think 4 or 5 times before I stepped up to a Legend car. And, the Legends were just a lot more competitive up in New Jersey. Wall Stadium had a really big division there. And there was just more opportunity to travel and race, other places, come down to Charlotte and race, like the Winter Heat Series. I did that. And I think I ran Winter Nationals that year in Orlando. So that was when I started to travel and really see how we stacked up to the competition and, the bigger teams and better drivers and things like that.
So I know you kind of did the Legend car stuff for a little bit. Kind of talk about when you made what was then, I think, the Camping World East Series debut, which is, I think, now the what is now the ARCA Menard Series East. Is that kind of where kind of things started when you raced with MWR back in 2010?
Yeah. So trying to think back, it's so long ago.
Yeah.
So I started racing 2006. So
Mhm.
7 would have been Legends cars. 2008, I raced late models.
Yeah.
Basically everything I ran for 1 year and moved up. And I think part of that was my dad didn't want me to get in a situation where I was dominating and making it easy and, winning races and really just making it too easy on myself. He really wanted me to always be up to a new challenge and have to fight and claw. So 2008, I was racing late models, and that was when Martin was at DEI, and they had what was then Camping World East team. I think they had 3 or 4 cars, and there was an opportunity at the end of the year where one of their cars was open. I think Almirola ran it at Dover and won the race. And then the season finale was Stafford, I believe. I think it was the season finale. I know it was Stafford. And they gave me a shot in that car for DEI. So that was really cool. That was my first time in a true heavy, big stock car like that. Obviously I'd been racing late models. But that division at the time was really competitive. And there was a lot of cup teams with development teams in that series. As well as a lot of Northeast guys still, guys like Matt Kovaluk that kind of built that series and were always around it. So it was really cool to get my start in that series. I think I was just 16 then. So yeah. I'd only been racing for a few years. And, I was at that level where I was racing against guys like that. It was really cool. And yeah, I think I finished maybe 11th or something like that. So it was a decent race. And, I kept the car clean, took care of it. And had some fun, and that kind of turned into a full-time ride that next year for Michael Waltrip Racing.
Yeah. So really kind of then you, when you did that, you also ran some, you got the opportunity to run some, what was then some nationwide series races. So could Todd talk about that opportunity? What was it like, early, this is early 2011, 2012, we're talking here.
Yeah, so I ran full time um, in the East Series for MWR 2009 and 10, and I don't think they expected me to come in there and win two championships like we did. We had Mike Gricci kind of running the team, who he's a guy that I've known really my whole life that I can remember. He worked for my dad on his Bush North team, and as well as my brother when he raced for my dad. And when Martin moved down here, started racing for DEI, Gricci was with him for that too. So having him kind of run the show and build a team around me and believe in me and have the right people enabled us to go out and win races and win those two championships. And when I was at MWR, things just happened really fast. We started winning races and picking up sponsorship, and I got my chance to race Xfinity, and had some good runs that year, and was actually supposed to go full time in 2011, and we had some sponsorship issues and had to scale back to a part-time deal with what was then Pastrana Waltrip Racing, and kind of split the car with Travis Pastrana. And that all that stuff I felt like was just a blur. It all happened so quick, and all came together so fast.
Yeah. And so, and then you kind of were with that, and then you got to, of course, in 2012 you drove for Tommy Baldwin in the Xfinity Series, and then you kind of did some fun stuff, and you also did some stuff with JGR as well that year. What was that like?
Yeah, we 2012 was crazy. I don't know how many times I actually ended up racing, but it was a very part-time schedule, and a lot of off weeks, a lot of time off. Since that full-time year in 2010 in the K&N series, I basically raced part-time for a few years, bouncing between teams, which for a 19 or 20-year-old is definitely not easy. While you're still trying to learn, how to drive an Xfinity car, also having to drive for a bunch of different teams, work with different crew chiefs. It was definitely a lot to deal with for me. And that year with Gibbs, we had some really strong runs. Felt like there were some races we probably should have won. That year, the Xfinity Series was definitely very stacked and very competitive. That was when Cup drivers could still run every weekend. So you had Kyle Busch out there all the time, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, guys like that racing with you, which was cool to get that experience, but it was definitely tough. So
Yeah.
really wish we could have gone full time that year, and I think that would have really helped me experience wise, and being able to work with one team and one crew chief. But it kind of is what it is, and we had some good runs for sure.
Yeah, 11 races that year for 5 different teams. So
Yeah. So
that-
that's
that's
a big deal for a 20-year-old to go through all that.
yeah, you don't hear about that these days. So, and then
Yeah.
of course you have
Yeah, it
some
was
more
definitely tough.
more consistency in 2013 with because of course you went to the Truck Series, and then you went to Turner Scott. How'd that get put together, and what was it like running the Truck Series?
Yeah, that was fun. I think end of 2012, I ran a few truck races for Mike Hillman in the 27 truck. We ran Martinsville and Phoenix.
Yeah.
Martinsville, we broke something, and then Phoenix, we actually led a bunch of laps, and thought we were gonna have a chance to win the race, but pit strategy didn't work out. So going into 2013, we had Bass Pro for Daytona, and we were trying to piece together a deal to run full time, and it just we never were able to come up with a sponsorship to do it. But we had a good race at Daytona, and felt like we had a shot to win that race too. And I think we got a flat near the end, cut a tire and wrecked. But 2013 was kind of the same deal. I drove for a bunch of teams, made my cup start for James Finch at Bristol, which was really cool. and ran a few races for him. Um, and really that was my main focus, was just running that cup car for Finch, and trying to get experience and learn as much as I could. And that kind of grew into the deal for 2014 to race
Yeah.
cup for BK Racing,
Yeah.
which wasn't the best experience, and didn't really end great, but it was good to be out there in cup and running laps every week and learning as much as I could.
So just about to get to that. Of course, you ran, and as you said, the Cup car for BK. It was what was that like running in the Cup Series? For full time and stuff. And what'd you learn? And the only thing that I can remember is that hard crash you had at Michigan that year.
Yeah, that was definitely not the highlight for me. It was cool. I mean, to race cup, to have a chance to race cup full time like that, you know, albeit with a lower budget team,
Yeah.
was definitely cool. Being a rookie and being in lesser equipment is tough. As a young guy trying to prove yourself, you're always trying to, make the best out of what you got. And when you're in the Cup Series at that level and with that caliber of drivers, it's easy to make mistakes, especially as a rookie like that. So there was definitely some rough races. There was some good races too, where I felt like we had a strong chance at a good finish, and fought a lot of mechanical things and things out of my control. And we ended up parting ways before the year was up, but definitely good experience wise to be out there racing cup. Just trying to make all the laps every weekend. And like I said, just learn as much as I could.
And then after that, you ran some more part-time racing in 2015 with the Biaggi. Kind of the theme for you, it's like these, part-time rides, and kind of going into that, you talk about, we know how tough it is to get sponsorship these days. What was it like just, running all those part-time races and spending all that time at home? I know it was frustrating, but what's that like to go through as a driver?
It's tough for sure. Like I said, especially as a teenager and young, early 20s. My whole racing career, everything was easy. And, I felt like I proved myself, I'd move up. And really it just all came down to timing, I think. When I got to the Xfinity Series, it was a much different series than it is now, as far as, who was in the field, who was racing, who got opportunities. There wasn't quite the youth movement push, I felt like, that there is now when I got to the Xfinity Series. You had cup guys running full time for the championship, and you didn't really have series regulars that were my age. There was maybe 3 or 4 guys that were, either late teenagers or early 20s that were in the series. And now I feel like if you look at the Xfinity Series, the average age is like maybe mid 20s. So that's changed a lot. But at the same time, it was good to come in then and race against guys like that. And when you could beat cup drivers every weekend or have a chance to, it really, I felt like elevated you as a driver and really elevated what people thought of you and what they thought you could do. So really, like you said, the biggest thing was sponsorship. It was very tough in the early 2010s to find sponsorship, especially as a young, unproven driver. When you're competing against cup drivers, like I said. So I felt like for me, it was just timing. I kind of wish I would have came in maybe 5 years later, 6 years later. But that just kind of is what it is. You can't really do much about that. But you just got to keep on digging and hope you get the right opportunity.
Well, after that, you did. In 16 and 17, you got to run a majority of races for the Hattori team. What was that like working with Shiggy and all those guys over there in the truck?
That was definitely a fun experience. The thing I liked about that, when I went to Shiggy's in 2016, he had one truck, and he had run a few truck races, I think with Ross Kenseth, and I forget who else. But they didn't have any equipment, no notebook. Really, they were kind of lost as far as having good trucks or really, knowing what they needed to compete in the truck field. So starting 2016, we didn't have really that much of a plan past Daytona. Shiggy had some sponsorship for Daytona, and the crew chief at the time, I knew him. He was a kind of a longtime family friend, and that's kind of how the deal came together. They had a sponsor, needed a driver, and I'd always had good success at Daytona in trucks, and I think it paid off because we went out and finished second. And if the caution didn't come out in the last lap, I feel like we probably would have won the race. So we decided to try to run full time, just because we were so high in points, and we stayed up there for a few races, and eventually just got to a point where we ran out of sponsorship and had to scale back to a part-time effort. At the same time, we were trying to build trucks, get the right people in place to work on the team and kind of run the team. And it was definitely an interesting year, trying to build a race team from basically nothing. And, we didn't have any manufacturer support or anything like that. We were just kind of doing it on our own and trying to learn and figure it out. And there's definitely a revolving door as far as personnel and people go, just trying to find the right combination and trying to find what we need to go out and be competitive. I felt like at the end of the year, we sat down, me and Shiggy, and, tried to figure out what we're going to do to go full time and what we needed. And we were able to bring in Mike Gricci to run the team. And that's when things I felt like really took a big turn. We were able to get Scott Zipadelli, and really Scott, I had to beg him to do it. Actually I had to go to he was in his storage unit working on welding something. And I had to go there and basically beg him to come crew chief it, because he was at a point where he wasn't sure, if he wanted to be a full-time crew chief or what he wanted to do. And, luckily we were able to get him and get a bunch of guys that I'd worked with back at my MWR days. So really it was kind of a team that I had a big hand in kind of who it was and who we got. And, I think that showed in 2017, having the right people around me and feeling comfortable with everything and starting to build new trucks. We started to run really good, started to win stages, started to compete for race wins. And I think we had a shot at the playoffs and missed it by 0 points on a tiebreaker. So that was definitely disheartening. But at the same time, if you look where that team was in 2016 to where it was in 2017, I was definitely proud of the hand I had in helping build it and helping them build competitive trucks and get the right people in place. And that showed in 2018 when Brett went out and won a bunch of races in the championship. It felt like I had a small hand in helping them get to that point, which was cool. But at the same time, obviously I wish I would have stayed and been the one driving it. But hindsight's 2020, and I was glad to be part of that and help Shiggy build something. And, they're at the point now where they're a race contender every weekend and a championship contender every year.
Yeah. Well, after you left Hattori in 17, you then went to the Xfinity Series and went to Colleague. What was that kind of like? Because you kind of were in the same position when you went to Hattori, trying to build up a program, and then look where it is, now. I know you were only there for 1 year, but
yeah. I mean, they were a few years in, and they'd proven that. I felt like they had proven that they had all the parts and pieces and people to do it. They just needed time, and I felt like I could go there and try to help elevate it a little bit. And same deal. We had some strong runs. We made the playoffs. And I felt like we were definitely building as far as speed goes and being able to compete up front. It's kind of the same deal. I was there for a year, and obviously they've been able to grow and add more drivers and sponsorship, which anytime you can bring in more sponsorship and funding, that's going to help everybody. And they brought in some good drivers, and I think the biggest thing for them is that they've had consistency. They've had the same drivers for a few years now, and same sponsors, and they've been able to build into a race winning organization. So that was good to be a part of. And I enjoyed my time there, and kind of same deal. I wish I wish I could have stayed and continued to build, but you know, you can only do what you can do, and sponsorship just didn't quite work out where I could stay and continue. So it was back to the drawing board.
Did you know what was next after you left college?
No, I had no idea. That year, end of the year, I texted Dale and I asked him what they had going on for the next year, and they had some opportunities. So we went back to try to figure out how I could go race some more Xfinity stuff. And luckily some of my partners were able to help out and put a deal together to run part-time again. I felt like at that point, I just needed to go race something that I could, compete for race wins. And, whether that was full-time, part-time, whatever, I had to do what I could do to get in something competitive. And I felt like that was my best opportunity for sure.
Yeah. Then, and kind of going in last year, and then really another year, beginning of this year, did you know it? Beginning of 2020, did you know what you were kind of doing?
Not really. I've been really since 2018. It's kind of been last minute as far as what I'm going to do for that coming year. Nice was kind of the same thing. They'd proven in 2019 that they could win races, and I felt like that was kind of one of my only opportunities going into 2020, and felt like it was my best one to be competitive. And I feel like 2020 was definitely an off year for them. With COVID and everything, not having practice and qualifying definitely made it tough for us. And as a team, I felt like it was tough to just show up and race every weekend and not have practice, especially for me not being in a truck for a few years. There was a bit of a learning curve, especially with the Ilmor engine. When I ran in 2017, we had open motors still. So getting used to that was different. And, the series has changed a little bit. You got a lot more young guys, a lot more inexperienced guys in the series. It's tough if you're in the middle of the field to put a race together without getting run into or getting caught up in someone else's mess. So we fought that really every race I ran in 2020. And again, 2021, we've had a lot of the same issues, with not being able to qualify. It's really just, you have one bad race. It's tough to come back from it. And I feel like we've had our moments where we've shown that we can have the speed and be up front. It's just, we just haven't had the consistency and been able to put, races together back to back.
Right. So really kind of this year, when you went to Nice full time, and this year in 2021, did you got some more partners. Did it feel good to run full time again?
Yeah, for sure. This year for sure, I felt like we've really worked hard to have the partners we do. And, I put a lot of time and effort into having my partners at this level. And, the Marquee program has really grown over the past few years, from really just a personal deal in 2018 to now a big, really half-season sponsor in the Truck Series. So definitely proud of being able to put that together. And all my other partners with Circle B Diecast and Jacob companies and things like that. It's just felt good to be able to put that all together to go out and race full time for sure.
Do you know, and let me ask you this, I know that this is the time when everyone asks what your plans are for next year. Have you kind of discussed that with Nice?
Yeah, right now, I don't know. I don't know what next year holds. Obviously I want to be racing full time and I want to be competitive and be able to win races. And yeah, that's all still a work in progress for sure. But this past year, I signed the deal in November, which I've never had a deal done before the year I was supposed to race. So hopefully this year will be more of the same, and we can get it figured out sooner rather than later.
All right. Well, Ryan Truex, thanks for coming on and talk about your racing career, and we'll good luck at Gateway in a few weeks.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.